Hello everyone and welcome to another game of Starbow. Today I'm going to do something different. I will be casting a game, but I'll also be explaining a lot more than I usually do, and I'll be focusing more on the design process, as well as I'm going to be talking a lot about Terran Bio versus Protoss, and I will be talking a lot about the design of the units and also how to counter some of these units, because this is going to be from the Starbow test map. This is not live, but we're getting really close to a patch, so this will be very similar to live, I think. And since we're making some big changes, a lot of Protoss players, or at least some Protoss players, have been a little bit frustrated with trying to deal with these new units or these new tweaks to these units that are rarely seen play. So I thought I'd make this video to explain some things and also prepare Protosses for the changes that are coming, as well as Terran players, so you have kind of somewhere to start off, to give you a little bit of insight, so you don't have to like figure out everything from scratch. Oh, we're actually going to see a really fast Nexus from Sol. I've seen this game before, I just actually didn't remember that. I thought he was playing more standard. But I think at the beginning of this game, when I was casting it live on my channel, I think I was at the phone or something at the beginning, so I missed some of that. So, like I said, I will be pausing a lot. I'll maybe even speed up a lot. This will be different from my usual casting. I won't be hyping around in battles. I'll more be talking about design. So while we're waiting for things to happen, let me just talk about the changes in specifics. So, the Mercs are cheaper to make, if I remember correctly, but they also have lower HP. They have basically less overall stats, much lower damage. Yeah. So you can mass them more. It's more of a bio unit, to be honest. They shoot very quickly. I think they have less damage, but they have more attack speed than they have on live. So and in that way, it's also more like a bio unit. Like the Marine shoots a lot, but it doesn't shoot very hard. So the Merc has that going for it. Also, when the Mercs grapples now in the air, it not only slows down the enemy unit slightly, but they also, in the air, when they're flying, it's impossible to shoot a Merc. So it becomes invulnerable for a split second, which makes it so that connection will be guaranteed. So you know that when you grapple a Merc, it will connect. And that was one of the issues the Mercs had. You would grapple, and then would just die instantly when it was landing, and it would do absolutely no damage. You're guaranteed a little bit of damage now. So in that regard, it's kind of like a unit with very long range that you're going to get a little bit of damage, but it might just die very quickly. So it makes it a very unique unit. The Ghost has been radically changed. A lot. I think the Ghost Academy cost, let's see, the Ghost Academy cost, no, that's not where it is 150.50. I'm trying to remember if that's what it was. The Merc compound is actually quite expensive, and there's a reason for that. Because the Merc compound now actually, look at that, enables Starport, factory or Merc compound. So Bio has the capability of skipping factory tech if they make a Merc compound. And that's also an interesting change. Now, the Ghost. The Ghost can no longer attack by default. That's a huge change. Also, it comes with Cloak, researched already. I know the button is on the building, but it doesn't do anything. It's just for testing purposes. So it already has Cloak. When it's cloaked, the Cloak only costs 25 energy once, and it will remain permanently cloaked. But you can decloak, of course, but it cannot move when it's cloaked. It stands still, like this, and it can only shoot units, not buildings. So it's kind of like a siege tank in that regard. And let's just talk about what happened right off the bat. Kalevi made a couple of Ghosts. He moved them all the way across the map, and he cloaks them up here. This is horrible for Protoss. Look at that. He's going to cloak it here, and they do a lot of damage when they're actually cloaked. Oh, he's going to try and set this one in position. It takes a little bit of time for it to get cloaked, and he almost picks it off before it's cloaked. It's kind of like setting in siege mode. But now that it is cloaked, it deals a lot of damage, and it's a big problem. And you think, oh, that's OP. You can just make Cloak Ghost move across the map and just kill my stuff before an observer. Yes, he can, but there's an easy way to counter this. The way to counter this is to keep a couple of Dragoons right here. You want to be a little bit careful, because if it's going Mercs, you may want to be a little bit more defensive and not that aggressive. But you can at least have one Dragoon here and see what's happening. And every time they cloak, decloak, it takes 25 energy, and it takes forever. So if you just have Dragoons there, especially if they have range, he can't leapfrog across the whole map like this. Well, he can, but by the time he's there, you got observers there. So the mistake of Solaire was to keep his Dragoons in his natural and not be aggressive. Basically, versus Bio, you want to scout for Bio, and to scout for Bio, you need to see that tech lab, so you need to have some aggressive Dragoons anyway. So he's going to switch over to some Mercs. Now let's talk about countering Mercs. So that was countering this stupid Ghost early on. Now he has an Observer, he's going to be able to kill them easily. You should decloak and get out of there. You could scan and potentially pick off the Observer. That's really bad. But yeah, there they go, they're dead. So to counter Mercs. Mercs is another unit that seems to just counter everything Protoss has, and that's a little bit annoying. But there is a natural counter to Mercs, and that's this unit, the Zealot. Now, Protoss are used to playing versus mech, and when you play Protoss versus mech, you only make Dragoons for a very long time, as the fighting unit. In most builds. And then you add on the Speed Zealots later. And you usually have like speed on them, or almost have speed done by the time you start making them. And then when you take an engagement, you send in the Zealots first, the Dragoons behind. When the Zealots are dead, you pull the Dragoons back, and you only replenish the Zealots. That's like the standard way of playing mech versus mech as a Protoss player. Now versus a Bio player, Bio players would tend to go Mercs before Ghosts though. But Celebi was being a little bit cheesy there with the early Ghosts. To counter Mercs, you need more Zealots. You don't need only Zealots, but you need more Zealots. You need maybe like 50-50 Zealots and Dragoons. If you have to make more of one, I would maybe make a little bit more Zealots than Dragoons, but Celebi might correct me on this. And we don't know exactly what's the optimal composition right now because we haven't tested it that much, but I'm sure good players will find some. Point is, this is good. He's already getting some Zealots into his mix. Now, you can't just have Zealots and Dragoons and think you're fine. You also need to micro correctly. And I think this is a very important point. Because playing Bio as Terran versus Protoss in Starbow requires a lot of micro. Mercs are very micro-intensive units. You need a good position. You need to dodge storms. You need to send out squads of Mercs to pick off certain units. You need to use the grapple correctly. The grapple isn't just a big all push and end everything button anymore. You have to be a little bit more sophisticated with it. And we're going to see an engagement now. This is going to show actually what I'm talking about. So this is your ideal situation as Protoss. The Mercs comes grappling into your Dragoons. The Zealots stay with the Dragoons, stay close to the Dragoons and attack the Mercs, and Dragoons move back or move around and try and pick off Marines. You want your Zealots to attack the Mercs, and you want your Dragoons to attack the Marines. Or maybe pull back and help with the Mercs and keep the range of the Marines away, so you can only kill the Mercs by themselves. There's a lot of Mercs there and very few Marines, so you're not going to see this engagement that well. One might think that if you overmake Zealots, he can punish you with the Firebats, but that's not really the case. Firebats are just pretty bad overall. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So he's going to stem, he's going to grapple in. So this is good, this is good, but here comes these. He should have a couple of Zealots over here. He has one, but he just doesn't have enough Zealots. But this is a general good composition. That he's just gonna hold this. Like, he's just straight up holding. It helps with the safeguard, of course. He picks off, he almost picks off a High Templar there. That's really nice. This little subtle move there, but he grappled in to try and pick off the High Templar, which is a very important move to do to prevent Storm, but he had already set them to make an Archon, so he was able to deal with that. So that was a decent engagement. If he had more Zealots, it would be nice to keep them with, like, I love these Zealots over here that are attacking the Mercs, but if he had more Zealots, I would love to see them stay with the Dragoons there to protect them. So yeah. So that was actually a good example. And now he has Archons, and Archons are really strong versus Bio. And Archons beat Bio units really well. What you need as a Terran player to beat it is EMP on Science Vessels. And he's getting it now, but unfortunately the Fusion Core is right here. So if he loses that Fusion Core, that might be detrimental. So here comes the Archons. He's just gonna, wreak havoc with the Archons. Here is the Science Whistle, but the EMP isn't done, and it's still 40 seconds away, and this thing is gonna go down fast. He's not even trying to repair it, he's just moving back, and that goes down, so that's unfortunate. Now, SAVs, all workers on the test map has been buffed. That's another buff we have. I wasn't gonna talk too much about this, but when the workers attack now, they're actually gonna attack faster like the Brood War SAVs did, and since they also move more smoothly in this mode, look at that. SAVs and the Marines are doing a lot of work. Might actually be overbuffed. We're still looking at this. But yeah, SCVs are really effective at defending now. They're really strong. Their attack speed is 0.9. which is quite a lot. Marines have 0.86, so they attack almost as fast as SCV, and they actually do the same damage. No, two less damage. But this has been upgraded, so 1 less damage. So if you can connect the SCVs, and they have more health. Yeah, SCVs are strong, man. Dude, you meta just make SCVs. No. And you think, well, what about probes and drones? Well, probes and drones has a buff. Look at this. They have a range of 1.3, and they also have a slight moving shot. It's not always working as well as intended. So you can outrange with the probes and drones, the SCVs. The SCV still has a very short range. I think it just says melee. Yeah, it just says melee. But I think it's like 0.5 or something, or 0 point something, but this is actually 1.3. So you can, if you're in a micro situation, your probe can just eventually pick off the SCV. And it also, this is very important to remember. The range on these workers, since they're so long, if a drone comes to scout this and he's moving through the mineral line, if you just group this and say attack air, just A there, they're just going to kill that drone instantly because of their range now. So you don't want to move through mineral lines anymore. You got to be really careful about that. So that's important. All right. So we're getting War Prisms, we're getting Archons. I like the War Prisms. So this is him adapting. So we have EMP coming out. How do you protect your High Templars from all this EMP? Because that Storm is the best tool you have against Bio. Storm and maybe Reavers. But Reavers are not that good versus these Mercs. They can grapple on and pick him off. Your best tool is Storm. And to keep your High Templars from being EMP'd, you want to spread them out. But another trick is to keep them in the War Prism. Again, this is more micro-intensive. But so is Bio. So you counter micro with smart micro. And I think that's a fair game. That sounds fair to me. So that's important. So we're going to have Protoss moving out now. I'm still running this game because there's one more thing I want to show. I may end this game early or speed up for a little bit. But Ghosts do have the point defense drone as well. We're going to talk about that a little bit. They still have that, although their cloak is incredibly different. And they still have the tactical nuke, which is now kind of nerfed because it's hard to get Ghost in a sneaky position when they can't move out cloaked. So we may do something about that. Or he's going to try. Let's look at that. So you can grapple, pick off a High Templar, and then almost get out of there. He actually gets out of there with one of them. Never mind. So that's another anti-High Templar tactic. You send out a group of Mercs first to snipe before this happens. Oh, okay, he got the EMP though. They got a Storm off, but he also got an EMP. But Kalev just doesn't have enough units to hold this. Well, he has some more back here, and he can bring in the workers again. He may be able to hold this. Another EMP on the Archons, very nice. He's still going to have a hard time dealing with this because Protoss units are just so strong. Protoss is still very strong versus Bio. But Bio stands much more of a fair chance now than they did before. And they still relied on positional units, especially the Ghost is a very positional unit now. And not just moving a big army around, which is something that we've been hoping to achieve. Let me talk a little bit about positional nature of Ghosts while this engagement is happening. When we had the lockdown or the Seeker drone on Ghosts, one of the issues was that you wanted to use it during a battle. And you already wanted to grapple, you wanted to stim, you wanted to move away from Storm, you wanted to maybe optical flare some units with the medics. Like, there are so many abilities and so many buttons that Bio had to press all the time. So with this Ghost, we've been particular in this design to make sure that this is stuff... Oh, there's like a Merc drop or something. To make sure that... I guess we can follow that. We've been particularly designed to make sure that the Ghost's abilities is something you can do before and after battle and not during battle. So you don't add another layer of button clickings during big engagements. There's already so much a Terran player has to do compared to... oh, he's healing inside the dropships. You can see that. That was cute. There's already so much he has to do compared to the Protoss player in terms of micro. And another thing that Mercs are really good at, because they have explosive damage and they have very fast attack speed, is to pick up buildings like you can see right there. So yeah, I think that was the observatory or something? No, that's over here. I don't even know what building that was. I didn't even pay attention. Alright. Oh, it was the Reaver thingy. No, he has that. Because he can still make Reavers. Okay, whatever. Oh, it's the Forge. Because he's remaking that. This was the Forge. It was the Forge. Yeah, there's the robotics bay. That's what I meant. The Reaver thingy. It will be hereby known as the Reaver thing. Okay, let's speed this game up. I wanted to show one more thing. So we're going to have another move out. I'm going to use this because my buttons sometimes pause the game instead of slow down. Because there I got linked wrong. Hotkeys linked wrong. So. He's making more Ghosts again now. That's interesting. You can use that to set up point defense drones. which are on the ground. We're going to talk about point defense drone in a second. I'm going to show it instead of talking about it, so let's get there. So we have this engaged perch. I guess I'll slow down for this engagement. He cloaks the ghost, but they just die because of the observer. So ghosts are not that great at a defensive position, really, at this point, because they can't move around. So like they're just stuck in the front. Even if they're in the back and you move the rest of your army back because you want to kite back with bio, they're stuck in the front again. So they're not that incredibly awesome as they would seem, but he actually holds this off quite well. I think he was able to EMP a lot of the High Templars there, so a lot of the storm didn't go as well as planned. Okay, so we got some more dropping here. He's going to try and get the Robo Bay. He doesn't get it. Pylons can heal buildings now, but you have to target that manually. They will heal units automatically, but if you want to heal your buildings, you have to target it, so you will prioritize units. It's not to make life harder for Protoss, it's just that if we didn't have it that way, it's hard to get a good prioritization system going in the editor. So, so it's just to make sure that that it doesn't heal the robotics bay when you should be healing the zealots, right? So, alright, so let's move on. Skip to the part I wanted. But I think I talked about all the changes I wanted to talk about. Also, there is a graphical bug that you may have been seeing whenever there's a grapple going on. All the graphics change. It's really weird. Oh, that's a huge pickoff. I think you got a lot of High Templars there. I fixed that bug on the test map now. Or I got a lot of help from a guy named Templar Freak, who's done a lot of modeling work, so I really appreciate that. But it's been fixed on the test map now, so it will be fixed for the next patch too. It's also on live, so we're gonna actually maybe see it now. If he grapples in here, yeah, see all the cliffs like became a different color when they grappled. It's really weird, but we got that fixed. We just changed the grapple model. Actually, it has a thinner core now. So now he's using the War Prisms for High Templars, which I really like. We're still not gonna see much of. Actually, I'm gonna keep. I'm just gonna skip this. I'm sorry. It's kind of exciting, but I'm not here to cast the game. I'm here to talk about changes. All right. So we see over here, Kalev is setting up a base. This is kind of the point I want to talk about soon. Also, there's another base here. Look at them going at it. It looks so funny. Like a jugger, like a jackhammer. Well, I was speeding it up too. Okay, so he's gonna see this base soon. So Kalev is setting up some defense. He's setting up a planetary. He's bringing over ghosts. Setting up the ghosts in a cloaked position. Oh, here comes a High Templar. I'm gonna storm that. Get out of there. Oh, it's not too important. But he's setting up the ghosts in a cloaked position. And they still have a ton of energy. And they can still cast Point Defense Drone while cloaked. So here we go. So, we're gonna have a wall here. Coming up. He's setting up 2-point defense drones. They're gonna suck up the energy from the Dragoons. And the ghosts are gonna start picking off the Dragoons that are coming in the front. Even if they can see the Dragoons now. The point defense drone still, and then he can activate the planetary. Alright. So, and then he EMPs. So let's just talk about what's happening here for a second. So this looks like almost an impenetrable defense with very few units, and that might seem unfair. I can agree with that. But let's talk about the mechanism of how these things work. So, to kill the ghost, you need an observer. But to hit the ghost, you need to not have a point defense drone there because they suck up the missiles. Now, they are on the ground, and they only suck up missiles. Which means that if instead of moving in with Dragoons, he had moved in with Zealots, the Zealots could have picked off the point defense drones. They would have taken some damage from the Dragoons. They could even kill the Dragoons first, if they want to, as long as there is an observer close by. They could have picked off the point defense drones. They would have been under target by planetary, but then the Dragoons could move in and finish that off. So, there are ways to deal with this, but you have to know exactly what you're doing. Also, point defense drones do not live forever. They have a limited amount of duration. And also there's a cooldown on the planetary fortress. So what this is doing is basically buying Kalevi time to move his army over. This by itself doesn't defend everything. If Sol had just waited and Kalevi hadn't moved over, he could have come up and just killed it. So I'm not saying this is good or bad design right now. I'm just saying how to deal with it. We still have to. We're not really enough players to test everything at the moment, so it's really hard for us to say if something is poorly designed or well designed at the moment. We think it's good design. We think it's decent enough to be put into the game, but we're at the state of this game we don't mind adding some experimental stuff because we're not that many players. And we talked about this in the past. So here's all the graphical glitches. yada yada. And I think Levidius wins the game because he has a really big army right now and has a good economy, and Sold basically has a distant mine at this point. So yeah, well, he could mine more here. So yeah. Oh, good EMP again. So this might feel like all of this happening right now might feel unfair for Protoss, but there are ways to counter and deal with these things, and that was one of the points of this replay, is to just showcase what Terran has now for tools, but also show that Protoss can deal with it. But it is tricky, and it requires a lot of micro, and it requires a lot of work. But if you think about all the, work that has gone into figuring out Brood War, and they're still figuring out stuff. Whenever we add something new to Starbow, on top of the kind of Brood War meta, and you expect to figure that out, like play a couple of games and figure it all out, that's just being very stupid, in lack of a better word. Sorry, if that happens, that's just sad. So we may add stuff that seems really strong, and for all we know, it might be really strong, but I don't think it's strong for the reasons that you see initially. Initially, those things are probably going to be solved by some good counter builds and counter strategies, and then there may be some counter strategies that may be really strong that we haven't even thought about, but those are hard to foresee, and we're just going to have to take that if that happens. So I hope you enjoyed this explanation. I hope you look forward to the next patch. It's going to be coming out pretty soon, and have a good day and happy Starbowing.